Good morning. On this early Friday morning, so nice to see you all here. I am Deb Vandermolen, and on behalf of the Work Retention Network, I want to welcome you to the Fourth Friday Forum. Our topic for today is literacy in the workplace. I want to introduce you to our panelists. We have an incredible group here with us today with a tremendous amount of expertise in the area. I'm going to introduce each one of them. Each panelist will provide you with an approximately 10-minute presentation, and we'll have room for questions at the end. Susan Ledy has served as the Executive Director of the Literacy Center of West Michigan, a nonprofit organization since 1989, 2 years after its inception. The organization has grown from a small organization with 2 staff and a $30,000 budget to one with 17 staff and a $1 million budget. Wow. Under her leadership, the organization has helped thousands of adults to read or to speak and understand English. She currently serves on several local and state committees, including a task force of the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Growth, the steering committee of Greater Grand Rapids Reads, and on the Kent-Allegan Michigan Works Adult Committee. This year, she is also serving on a state adult learner work group chaired by Andrew Levin of DLEG. She's a Grand Rapids native and has 2 grown daughters. She enjoys various hobbies, including kayaking, bird watching, painting, and of course, reading. Kristen Ekins is the Customized Workplace English Director of the Literacy Center of West Michigan. Kristen has worked at the Literacy Center since 2002, serving as an AmeriCorps Vista volunteer, the CWE Program Coordinator, and since 2004 as Program Director. Kristen holds an MA TESOL from Michigan State University. I'm sure we'll hear more about that in a little bit here. Over the last few years, her research has been focused on developing and evaluating workplace education programs. Her English as a second language and English as a foreign language teaching experience includes workplace English, ESL for migrant workers, one-to-one ESL adult tutoring, and EFL in Costa Rica. Outside of selling workplace language and multicultural workplace training to businesses in West Michigan, Kristen enjoys presenting nationally, traveling abroad, exploring different languages and cultures, and taking photographs. Photographer. She is honored to be a panelist for the Work Retention Network's Fourth Friday Forum on Workplace Literacy. Rachel Youngblood brings over 14 years of sales, human resources, project management, program development, grant management, I'm tired already, and business-to-business collaboration experience to the West Michigan NCRC, correct, Rachel? Advocates team. She has been in workplace development at Grand Rapids Community College for the last 6 years and is now completing a 3-year Wired Generation 1 project management role, where the NCRC has a key strategy in driving unprecedented change in Michigan's workforce system. Andrew Brower is the Executive Director of The Source, a nonprofit focused on workforce development leading to economic development. The Source is a collaborative effort led by Grand Rapids businesses, the Kent County Department of Human Services, and area human service organizations to efficiently and effectively deliver employee and family supports that lead to personal and professional growth and increased productivity. Andrew previously was the Human Resource Director for Butterball Farms, Inc., one of the founder employers in The Source. Andrew first became engaged in working with issues of poverty and community development when he served 2 years for the United States Peace Corps in Honduras, Central America. Prior to his service in the Peace Corps, Andrew earned a bachelor's degree from Albion College and a master's from Michigan Technological University. His volunteer activities include work with Access, Hospice of Michigan, Leadership Grand Rapids, and he serves on a City of Grand Rapids board. Andrew and his wife, Janae, have a daughter, Maze, I believe, and live in the Easttown neighborhood of Grand Rapids. I'd like you all to welcome our panelists this morning.
Good morning. My name is Susan Ledy. I'm Executive Director of the Literacy Center of West Michigan. As Deb mentioned, we're a nonprofit organization, and I'd like to just tell you a little bit about the Literacy Center first, and then otherwise my role this morning is to bring to you some information, some statistical findings from a state report from the Adult Learner Work Group that I've been serving on. I'd like to use a little bit of an analogy for our services. There is a billboard out there in the community. I believe it's Ferris State University that has a picture of a young woman dressed in medical garb, and it says "One Big Michigan Success Story" on there. She's smiling. She has a job. She probably just graduated with a degree. I thought about that sign, and I thought, well, the Literacy Center of West Michigan, could we be up there on that sign? And I thought, yes, we could. We could be. We are one big Michigan success story. We can have one of our students up there with a person with some kind of work garb. It might not be the medical garb, but it would be somebody who's employed, who is a success story. The one difference is this person would not have a degree, because unfortunately they do not give degrees for reading or learning to read or learning English as a second language. But I see it as a pipeline. We are doing the work to help people get to that degree, to get to that better job. We're doing the basic skill work with people to help them enroll in colleges, help them secure that better paying job. Let me just highlight our 3 programs. We have our adult tutoring program that we've had since our inception, and that mobilizes and trains volunteers to teach adults to read and also speak and understand English. Both native speakers and non-native speakers, and we've served over 450 people in that program. Our customized workplace English assists companies with literacy and language needs and also cultural understanding for management. Our family literacy programs significantly impact the lives of children. We have a collaboration with the Head Start and now a collaboration with Grand Rapids Public Schools. Research shows that the parent is the most critical piece in the success of the child. So that's what those programs are all about. And now I'd like to tell you a little bit about the report that has come out from the work group that I've been serving on. This work group is part of the Council of Labor and Economic Growth, and it's called the Adult Learner Work Group. And as Deb mentioned, it's chaired by Andy Levin. He's the Deputy Director of DLEG, Department of Labor and Economic Growth. Here's some of the findings of the need in Michigan. And you can translate these easily to West Michigan. 1 in 3 working age adults, or 1.7 million, need basic skills or some kind of credential. Nearly 700,000 of them do not have a GED or high school completion. And 60% of students across the state need remediation when they enroll in a community college. So that's the need. Again, there's my pipeline. I see our work at the Literacy Center as that first piece of the pipeline, but all of us as providers are helping people move along that pipeline to a better job or higher education. Why focus on adult learning if we know there's a problem instead of focusing on, say, the K-12 school? Is that most of the workforce that's going to be in place in the year 2020 is in the workforce today. We also found out through our work at the state level that Michigan is at the bottom of the pile in terms of skilled workforce. Another report came out at the same time on Michigan's competitiveness, and it is lacking. We are at the bottom of the pile. And yet there's jobs going unfilled in our state because the jobs are requiring higher skilled workers. This group, as I mentioned, was part of the Council for Labor and Economic Growth, and what we are focusing on is developing a new plan for Michigan for adult learning. It has, as you know, the old system included adult education and a lot of other organizations, but we are all doing our work in silos. They've changed the wording, and if you notice on here, it's not called adult education, it's called the adult learning infrastructure. They want to take away the silos, have people work together more in collaboration. This is if we can do this and transform our workforce. These are some of the statistics you'll see. And I think you can see that, and you have one in your hand otherwise. But to the far left is less than a high school diploma making $10 an hour. To the far right, with a bachelor's degree or higher, making $25 an hour. Michigan has about 25% of its population has a bachelor's degree, so we've got a lot of work to do. Higher rates of citizenship would be another result. Look at the difference here between those who have a high school diploma in college in terms of their voting percentages. Higher levels of education. Family income really plays a role in who goes to college. You can see that how many in a middle income, 39.5% enroll in college, and only 23% from low income families. Higher levels of fiscal contribution to the state, to our communities, will be a result if we can make this transformation. If those 700,000 adults who did not have a diploma or GED get a GED or a diploma, then the annual fiscal contribution to the state would increase by that amount, $4.97 billion. Think of our state economy right now and how that would make a difference. Here it is in another format. You can see a high school graduate contributes $1.89 for every dollar that person gets back in benefits from the state in some form or fashion. If a person with some college contributes to the state $3.74 for every dollar, but a person with less than a high school diploma contributes only 64 cents for every dollar, so they're actually getting more than they're giving in terms of contributing to the state economy. Higher rates of job creation attract employers who strongly value a skilled workforce. Skilled workforce attract those higher-end employers. We need them in Michigan. Time for change is now. Knowledge-based industries are the major source of employment growth now. So we have to have people who can read, can work towards getting an associate's degree or higher level of college. Here you can see here 5 million have not completed an associate's degree or higher. There's also a huge gap in wages for the person. You can see in how it's changed. In 1973, the gap between high school or less to college is $8.18, and that's really widened. That gap has widened to $14. There are some principles on this adult learner work group that we've developed. We're still doing our work. We've been meeting for 6 months. We have 2 more months to go. We've completed the need statement and this piece, which identifies the principles. Our next step in the plan is to develop the strategies. So we're going to be using what we've learned to develop these strategies and have that done hopefully by December. So we have a lot of work to do. But here are the principles, and what they've done is identified not only the principles but also a model in the state who could support those principles. And the first one is collaboration. As I mentioned, we've in the past worked more in silos. They really want to see all organizations working together, and how can we do that? An example is the Michigan Works in Northwest Michigan. They have a Michigan Works service centers. All of them have learning centers with basic skill learning labs at each center in the area, Traverse City area. Different agencies are in the Michigan Works. The learner doesn't even know who's serving them, really. They don't know a literacy program's in there. They don't know a community college is in there. They are getting the services they need at this center. The next one is responsiveness, and the model that was cited here was the Grand Rapids Community College in their CAP program, and that CAP program has an accelerated schedule of developmental college classes for displaced workers. I believe most of the work happens at MTech. Agility was another one, and that is the Education and Training Connection in Midland. And they are, in terms of agility, they've addressed a new opportunity in Michigan. That's the filmmaking industry, as you know. So they are starting to train people now to help with filmmaking. And that's not just the filmmaker, but also the carpenters, the electricians, the skilled trades that are going to be needed for the filmmaking industry. Contextualization is Mott Community College. And they have a program that really intertwines basic skill learning with a career pathway. So they're working on job skills at the same time they're working on basic skills. So that, and also it's an accelerated basic skill attainment. Entrepreneurism, the Literacy Center of West Michigan was cited as a model because of our work with workplaces, and Kristen's going to talk more about that. But our ability to respond to employers' needs, but also our ability to do some creative funding of those classes for companies. We have fee-based, but we also bring in some other sources of funding to help companies pay for services. And then alignment is Lance Cruz Public Schools, and they are partnering with Michigan Works, Macomb Community College, Baker College, and they're all transferring. They're allowing people to earn credit for adult basic education. That credit transfers to the college for credit. So I'm not sure how I don't know the details on that, but I think that's a very interesting concept. And that ends my report. And I look forward to bringing back more information after we finish the plan in December. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kristen Ekins. I'm the Customized Workplace English Director at the Literacy Center of West Michigan. And I'll just mention I have my master's in TESOL that I mentioned, and that's teaching English to speakers of other languages. What I'm going to talk about today is briefly an overview of our CWE program, and then I'll discuss a little bit more of what we found in the workplace related to workplace literacy. I'll give a few examples with our students, and hopefully that will be beneficial. We provide workplace literacy, language, and multicultural training for West Michigan companies. Our tagline in the CWE program is building bridges over language and cultural barriers. So we do this it's following the National Institute for Literacy's definition of literacy. We are providing skills, helping employees to upgrade their skills in reading, writing, math, and communication in English. And we want to help the employers keep competitive locally and globally. We want to help them reduce their turnover and increase their productivity, help them with their safety and improve safety and quality. I mentioned some of our CWE programs are the offering. In our CWE program, the offerings we provide are the Workplace English program, and that's for native speakers, non-native speakers of English. Workplace literacy for native speakers of English, multicultural workplace, this is a training for managers, and accent modification, and that's for non-native speakers of English who are business professionals. I'm going to briefly describe what a class might look like for our workplace English as a second language training and our workplace literacy. Basically, we provide whatever the company needs in terms of class programming. So it could be a 10-week class, it could be 20-week, could be a 30-week program. It basically is working with the employer to find out what the needs are. So we tailor the classes based on what the company is saying they need. If it's to fill out forms, if it's to work through HR forms or through work processes and work instructions, we can put basic skills together with what the company needs and provide a training. We can do this in a one-on-one setting or in a small group or a group up to about 20 people. And we help the company determine who should be in those classes. So we'll go in and assess the participants. They feel if the supervisors say, I have this or this individual, and I feel that they need to have some training in basic skills, then we'd come in and do an assessment to figure out what their level is, and then place them in an appropriate class. And then we evaluate the class and how it's going. We talk with the supervisors, talk with the participant, with the trainer, and we figure out, is this exactly what the company has needed? Are we meeting the objectives that we set in the beginning? CWE has experience working with a spectrum of industries since 2001. And in the past 7 years, we've worked with over 50 companies and with over 800 adult learners. And now I want to talk about the need. 18% of Michigan's adult population is at level 1 literacy. That's adult basic education, beginner literacy. And I want you to just take a moment here and look at the screen and look at the sample. I'm going to pause and have you read that a moment. For the sake of time, I'm going to keep going. I will translate that a moment for you. This is an actual letter from one of our adult learners that's going to a company. They're applying for a job. Maybe you got the gist of it. If not, this is what it says. Dear whom it concerns, I have an application in your company. I will want to know if you is taking consideration to hire me in your company. And I've read this over and over again, and each time I have to write it down one more time to see. And some of these words are very, very difficult to figure out what they mean. This is one of the adult learners, one of the 18%. So 18% of our workforce may be writing like this, trying to apply for jobs. This is the challenge that our employers face in hiring people, and this is the challenge that 18% face in trying to get jobs. We also have competitive pressures. Our employers are facing this global boom. They're trying to work in different areas. They're changing in operations because the competitive pressures are increasing. So what they do to change in operations, the technology is increasing. Instead of clocking in by swiping a card, they're going into the computer and punching in. They've got to go through different things, put in their IDs, different things that low literacy individuals have a very difficult time doing, maneuvering through the computer screen to do this. So there's a change in operations and in work processes, new work instructions that the employees need to be able to read, that they're unable to read. So this is requiring more work, more from the workers. Instead of just having the basic skills now, before maybe that was enough. Maybe they could have their job described to them, hands-on, but now because of these requirements, different changes in operations, they have to have an advanced level of these skills as well. And so instead of just learning the basics, the reading, writing, math, they're learning the problem solving and all of the different things that make it much more challenging to be in our workforce right now. About 20% of America's workers have low basic skills. 75% of unemployed adults have reading or writing difficulties. I want to mention just one brief example of one of our students. I'll call him Bob. Bob had a job for about 25, 30 years in a manufacturing company. He was laid off and now is unable to get back into the workforce because of the technology advances, and he's probably a little bit lower than the literacy level that you saw in that letter. And this is a huge struggle for him to be able to get back into the workforce when he does not have those basic skills. So we're working with him right now as an unemployed person, trying to get him back into that workforce and teach him those skills that he needs. Another individual who is employed, he is Somalian and speaks 5 different languages, but is literate in none of them. And so he has amazing skills in English. He's able to speak in English and communicate well, but because of the advances in technology, he's unable to read the work processes and be able to perform on the job. I do want to mention, too, that the employers know there is a negative impact on productivity when workers do not have those basic skills. But it's also important for them to know that there's a positive impact when they do learn those skills, those basic skills. These are just a few things I'm going to mention, just the ones in bold here, that employees have mentioned, our employees, as well as what research has shown, that they feel there's an improved ability to understand and use documents after workplace literacy training. There's more positive attitude towards change. There's better ability to work in teams. There's improved capacity to think critically. And there's improved ability to use computers. Now, the employers are seeing some of these benefits as improved employee morale, and we've seen that firsthand in the workforce, that there's a unity after they go through the literacy training together. There's a unity in that classroom which goes into the workplace, and it's infectious. There's improved capacity to cope with change, which is always happening now in the workforce. Improved capacity to use new technology, improved effectiveness of supervisors. I thought that one was really interesting. And then, of course, there's reduced time per task because supervisors don't need to spend the hands-on time with the employees to teach them what they need to do. Instead, they can read those processes. And then reduced waste in production of products and services. This affects the bottom line. Employers will get more money, will be able to produce more if they're able to train their employees on the basic skills they need. I just want to mention some of the adult learners' roadblocks. These are some of the issues that prevent the individuals from attending classes. Confidentiality. For native speakers of English, this is something that they do not want to be found out. They may have been in a workplace for 20, 30 years doing the job that they've done, and they do not want to be found out because they're fearful of losing their job. This is a real fear because they could lose their job if they're unable to perform the tasks. A lot of the times when we often find out about an employee because of the technology change or the different changes, and they're unable to perform that task, and they're fearful of losing their job, so they go to the supervisor. Also, balancing multiple jobs to make ends meet, child care, unreliable transportation, work schedules conflicting with off-site classes. Fear of the classroom is another one. If someone has gone through school and has just kind of skated by, the teachers keep passing them by, passing them into the next level, but they really are unable to perform in school. They may have a fear of the classroom. We've had students the same way. So what we do is work with them to feel comfortable in the classroom and to feel that learning can be very helpful for them in their everyday life and in their workplace. I do want to mention one of our students, call him Keith. He has 2 different jobs. One in a manufacturing company, has been there for 20 to 30 years, and then in a grocery store, a local grocery store, and he is pushing carts there. I want to mention that he's unable to be a greeter. He's mentioned to us that he is pushing carts and is fearful of becoming a greeter because he doesn't want to be found out at that store. He's not able to point to where they need to go, individuals would need to go to look at the aisle markers. And so this is something that we're working with him in workplace literacy training. But he's not able to actually improve his skills unless the employer is able to provide it. He has an 8-year-old son at home. He wants to be able to read to him, but he has no time in the day. He works 7 days a week. So if the employer doesn't provide the service for him, he doesn't have time to go anywhere else to get it. The benefits to the adult learners are profound, and I just want to read this one quote from one of our learners. The workplace literacy class gives us a chance to better ourselves in society for jobs, comprehending what we read in order to make it in the world with better understanding. Thank you so much, and you can contact me if you have any questions about or literacy needs or workplace ESL or multicultural workplace training. Thank you.
It worked. Good morning, everyone. I'm Rachel Youngblood. I work here at Grand Rapids Community College, and I'm here to talk to you today about an unprecedented alignment in Michigan. Susan had mentioned her work with the Michigan DLEG department, and I have, of course, been involved in some of that as well. Today I'm going to talk to you about the National Career Readiness Certificate, what it is, what it means to Michigan, and why you might want to know how you can use this piece of data in good hiring decisions, in training and development. Okay, let's see if I can. Okay, technology and me, we don't get along. Okay. Oh. Okay, so if you really think about it, Michigan's economic future is built on talent. Talent drives prosperity. Educational attainment drives prosperity. You saw that from some of the data that Susan showed you this morning. And really understanding what is Michigan's talent pool. How do we keep and retain the employers that we have now, and how do we bring new jobs to Michigan? The National Career Readiness Certificate is really based on 3 core foundational skills: applied math, reading for information, and locating information. It's built on a system that was designed by ACT called WorkKeys. WorkKeys is a human capital management system for training and development. It's really it was designed by the assessment people for employers. It measures cognitive skills and applied skills. And the difference between the ACT college readiness test and applied skills in the workplace is they're really measuring 2 different things. But moving Michigan to the ready for college, ready for work platform is really what we need. The jobs of tomorrow require some level of additional training beyond high school. And how do we help change the attitude and perception of Michigan's parents? From a survey in 2005, 26% of parents thought that going on to post-secondary education or technical training after high school was important. That's it, 26%. So we have a perception and a reality issue that we're working on with a lot of really great programs. If you really think about it in context, the National Career Readiness Certificate is a way for us as a state to measure our skilled workforce. What are the skills that we have available? And then how do we build those? How do we develop additional occupational skills? And then how does that translate into the jobs that the employer has? How do I learn jobs specifically what that employer needs? Work instructions, processes and procedures, etc. The Career Readiness Certificate is granted on 3 different levels: bronze, silver, and gold. WorkKeys is a measurement system. Of course, anything developed by ACT has numbers and statistics behind it. It's granted on a level. You're given when you take these applied skills tests, they're really not a pass or fail. Okay? These are all trainable skills. So if I am at a base level, say a level 3, I'm able to perform about 30% of the occupations that are available in the marketplace today. With a silver certificate, I'm able to perform about 60% of the occupations today. And with a gold, I'm able to perform about 90% of the occupations today. So it's really that 3, 4, 5 platform. If you think about it in context of why is this important, okay? As we combine core foundational learning with additional occupational training, how does that relate to an occupation? You can see here by this chart we've looked at occupations. To the right you see AMLI-RI. That's applied math, reading for information, locating information. Those are the abbreviations. That total is the combined score of those 3. And then the annual salary, that's a national salary range based on the ONET codes. But you can see here, for someone to have a sustainable wage, that moving from poverty to a sustainable wage, you really need to have a silver certificate. Moving on into a gold certificate. Okay, how do we do that in Michigan? And there's, I think our new Department of Bureau of Workforce Transformations is appropriately named. So what does the work keys in the National Career Readiness Certificate do for employers? It does help them improve their hiring process. It helps them understand what skills is this individual bringing to the table on top of job experience, personal skills, references, etc. It is the predictor of job success. It can reduce your training costs. People can hit the ground running. That's a common term we hear with employers. And of course, reduce turnover. Getting the right person in the right job with the right set of skills will completely solve some of our turnover issues. We have lots of supporters of the movement of the National Career Readiness Certificate in Michigan. It really started under the work here by our Manufacturers Council through the Right Place with a guaranteed diploma for Kent County. And of course, Mac McElroy, who actually is retiring here as the president of the Michigan Manufacturers Association, talked about predictability, uniformity, and certainty. Michigan's alignment. We really have the only alignment in the nation that has taken our K through 12 system and aligned it with our workforce development system to our employers through the use of a tool. Now, this is not a silver bullet. I don't want to leave you with that impression. But it is a tool that we can use to help grow our skills inventory in Michigan and grow a skilled workforce in Michigan. Yes, we do have 18% illiteracy rate. We also have 33% of the population that are only at the bronze certificate level, fighting for 12% of the jobs that we really have available in the marketplace. So we have to raise the skill levels of our workforce. So the students graduating from high school take the three work keys tests that make up the Career Readiness Certificate in their junior year under the Michigan Merit Exam. That's what the MME means. Sorry, we've been flooding you with acronyms this morning. Also, through the Council for Labor and Economic Growth, they had made a recommendation to the governor to adopt the National Career Readiness Certificate as our mandatory work readiness credential. They have aligned a work team that is currently figuring out all the details of that process through our Michigan Works system. Through the gift of Wired in West Michigan, we have been working on this for about 3 years. We have 23 service centers that actually cover the West Michigan area. I can proudly tell you today that all 23 of those service centers can offer the individual the opportunity to earn a National Career Readiness Certificate. We have been working very hard to build the infrastructure as well as work with our community partners and vendors to our Michigan Works system who work on workplace skills and redeploying talent back into our workforce. And if you really think about it, Michigan 3 years ago had zero skills inventory. The only way we could measure our workforce was by educational attainment. How many high school diplomas did we have? How many GEDs did we have? How many bachelor's and master's degrees, etc. Now we have an additional layer of data that we can really use to sell Michigan. And we can also really use to build up the skills of Michigan. The Work Keys system in the National Career Readiness Certificate has been around for almost 20 years now, and the southern states have been working on this for years. As you can see by this chart, South Carolina and Indiana are far ahead of us. But in 2 years, we've gone from 0 to number 3 in the nation. And as I mentioned earlier, we are the only state to have an alignment between our K through 12, our workforce system, and our employer system now. So in another year, we're going to overtake South Carolina because all of our graduating high schoolers will have the opportunity to earn a Career Readiness Certificate. That's approximately 125,000 kids. And then we're seeing anywhere between 2,000 and 4,000, depending upon the month, of Career Readiness Certificates coming out of our Michigan Works system across Michigan. So if you really think about it, if you use a college admissions analogy, of course we're at a community college today, so it's appropriate. 4,600 colleges and universities speak to thousands of high schools by saying our standard, or a way that we can help design an appropriate educational plan for an individual, is by the ACT. It's one way that we do that. Okay? By using that ACT score, it helps us in predicting the right coursework for the student and their success in programs. Employers can collectively speak back to high schools, colleges, and workforce agencies by acknowledging and accepting the National Career Readiness Certificate in their hiring process, and then bringing that also into their incumbent workforce. And really understanding Michigan's work in workforce development around in education, aligning ready for college and ready for work. Are they the same or are they different? And helping that individual have a common language across those systems, really that skills currency. What can I exchange for value? Okay? With all of the other things that I'm bringing to the table, what can I exchange for value? And I think of a certificate that aligns the core foundational skills is really a step up. And the one critical piece to aligning workforce systems is really our employers. And what you're seeing here is a metrics chart. We have spent a lot of time gathering and building a system. But how do we measure if that system is working? And one way that we look at that is employer demand. Do employers understand the National Career Readiness Certificate? Are they asking for it? Are they using it? And we do that through a letter of commitment, because there is a big awareness situation where you have to explain to the employer even what it is. Educational institutions, workforce development partners can help people earn certificates and credentials all day long, but if an employer doesn't understand what they are and how they can benefit that employer, then we've really done a disservice to that individual. So that employer engagement and awareness is a critical piece of the foundational work that we've been building on top of helping people earn career readiness certificates. And what you see here is really a chart of we're over about 420 some employers across the state who have signed an LOC, a letter of commitment, to say we would recognize and use the National Career Readiness Certificate in our hiring process. And we also want to begin to use the National Career Readiness Certificate in the development of our incumbent workforce. So speaking to a little bit about what Kristen said about raising the workplace skills. And of course, if any of you are interested, we don't just put data up. We actually have a website where we supply all of the letters of commitment for public view of the employers that have said, yes, I'm willing to tell the entire public that I'm accepting and recognizing the Career Readiness Certificate. And this is an example of what that letter of commitment looks like. But I really want to draw your attention to that, the bottom part here that says michigancrc.org. This is the Michigan website where you'll see all of the activity that's going on. We have the state divided into regions, and there's pockets of great activity, partnership with, of course, literacy organizations as well as Michigan Works, other learning providers around the state. And also, I mentioned Ready for College, Ready for Work. There's lots of publications. There's also an alignment to the National Association of Adult Literacy's recent publication that talks about literacy and numeracy and data referencing. And that's really what the NCRC is measuring: applied math, reading for information, and locating information. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here today, Deb. Thank you for having me. Thank you to the Work Retention Network for inviting me, and thank you to the camera for making me wear a tie on a Friday. Not a very common thing. So we've heard a lot from some experts in the field, some folks that have tremendous experience and just great expertise around this issue. So I want to, we have a little bit of time left. I want to try to tell a story that I hope that comes back to literacy at the end of it, as well as explain maybe the perspective from a person who works with employees day in and day out and works with employers day in and day out, and then leave plenty of time for questions, because I think tapping into the expertise we have here will be extremely important. In my biography was mentioned that I served 2 years in the Peace Corps, and I was down in Honduras. And when I went down there, I didn't speak Spanish very well. I didn't really speak Spanish at all. I thought I was going to be okay because I had some Spanish back in high school, but that was obviously some years before I went. But it turned out I wasn't when I went down there. And what happened is you go through 3 months of training, and I went through some intensive language courses there, but it wasn't quite enough time to make me feel comfortable. So when I went out to my site, I decided to live with a family. And I lived with a family. It was kind of a matriarchal family. The mother was a teacher, and she was pretty much in charge of the family. But she was gone most of the day at school. So without her around and her patience, in terms of teaching me language, I resorted to actually reading a lot of books in English to kind of hide from my illiteracy or my inability to speak in Spanish. So I did this for about a month, and then I realized what was going on, and I said, I can't be doing this for 2 years. So I started to go to the people that made me feel the most comfortable in the area, and that was all the little kids that were around. My family had 4 kids. 2 of them were 7 and 9, and one of their we had a TV in our house. Actually, it was a family that did quite well for that town. And on that TV, every single day at, I think it was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, piped in from Mexico City was the Mexican version of The Price is Right. Well, I know The Price is Right, and the kids love The Price is Right. So I would sit down with them, and we would talk, and I would listen to The Price is Right, because I realized if I understood the rules of the games that were on there, I would start to learn the language and start to get comfortable with it. So I do, when I speak Spanish, I have a little bit of a game show intonation in my voice. It's kind of comical, But regardless, I started to learn, and I started to spend time with the two young daughters of my host family there. And one day, one of the games, they always present what the toys are or what the prizes are. One of the prizes was a new refrigerator. And what happens is on the show, they open up the refrigerator, and it's chock full of food, and they say a new refrigerator. Well, one of the girls looked over to me and she said, Andres, and Andrew, Andres, and down there, she goes, Andres, is that what all of the refrigerators look like in the United States? And I said, yeah, just like yours. You have a refrigerator right back here. And she goes, no, not like that. Are they all full of food? And obviously that stopped me right there, and I thought back to the refrigerator that was 15 feet behind me in their house that had my water bottle and a block of cheese in it. That was about it. And that was usually about it when in that house. And so every day now, when I open my refrigerator here in the United States and I see that it's pretty much full of food, I think about that, and I think about how much I took that for granted my entire life until I was shown by a 7-year-old about that. And I think that has a little bit to do with sometimes the struggle of understanding illiteracy in our community and understanding illiteracy in our workforce, because I can read. This isn't an issue for me, but it is an issue for a lot of the people that we come into contact every day, that our caseworkers serve, and a lot of people that are working at these places of businesses. And it's very difficult to come up with a solution if you have absolutely no idea what the problem is and don't experience that day in and day out. So some of the ways that we try to approach literacy at the source, and let me back up. The source, for those of you that don't know, we're organized as a nonprofit organization, but we employ caseworkers that serve private corporations and primarily manufacturers here in Grand Rapids. So we work with 17 businesses, and there's 4,000 employees that are employed at those businesses. Our caseworkers focus on the retention of those 4,000 employees, and what they want, what the caseworkers, what they're there for, is to identify different barriers to employment that would cause turnover and help resolve those. And one of those that we certainly see day in and day out is an issue of illiteracy. So there are plenty of not plenty of organizations, but there are plenty of quality programs here in the community to begin to deal with the different areas of literacy. However, I would argue, and I'm guessing this group would agree with me too, so many of them are underfunded, and there can be so much more, an expansion of so much more, because there's obviously so much need for people to be served. We've heard a lot of statistics so far this morning. And I don't know what all those mean to you. What they mean to me is that this is extremely serious. If there's 20% adult illiteracy in our community, and there's 50 of us in the room, that means 5 of us are functionally illiterate, and that is going to affect the way that we can remain employed, the way that we can be productive, the way that we can function as citizens, the way that we can help our kids not have the same experiences as they're growing up. So I think we're dealing with a very serious problem. What I want to let you know is at the source, we focus on about 4 different areas of literacy, more or less, that are basically part of our goal to increase lifelong learning amongst the employees that we work with, and to try to push a culture of life, and frankly it is pushing, try to push a culture of lifelong learning into the minds of the employees we work with, into the cultures of the businesses. So some of the literacy that we focus on, of course, would be the basic literacy that we've heard about here, the reading, the writing, the English as a second language. The other would be, I guess, is the way we talk about it is kind of work literacy. That would be computer literacy. One of the things that I noticed, I came from a packaging manufacturer before I started working at the source, and it used to be that you would put something in a box and you'd shove that box down the line, and that was good enough. The next person down the line would take care of it. Now you put something in a box, you take that box, you weigh it, you enter that weight into the Q drive or something like that that's on an Excel spreadsheet, and then the second shift person comes in and pulls down that information off of the Q drive and then begins the process anew. It's just, work has become much more complicated, and if I'm a person that doesn't understand how to do that, how to work into that Excel, how to work into that Q drive, then I might leave my job just simply because I don't understand. Not because I wasn't capable, not because I was fired, but because I just didn't get it, and this wasn't a comfortable place for me to be anymore if I didn't understand. So work literacy, math, of course the reading, and the computer literacy. Health literacy is another area that we focus on. We want folks to understand how to talk to their primary care physician, how to make sure that they're going to the right places to make sure their kids are well nurtured and are getting the proper health and the proper health and vaccines. We want people to understand how to be more nutritious so that they can be more productive at work, so they can feel better after 8 hours of work and then going back to a family, which is tough work. And then finally, financial literacy. I think we work a lot with our employers that I think we're doing a disservice to our employees if we're not helping them access different ways to understand how to manage their money. There probably isn't, at least in my lifetime, a more important time to really focus on that than there is right now. But besides that, I've met very few people that don't need financial literacy in some ways. It doesn't matter whether you have $10 million or whether you have $10 to your name. Financial literacy and financial management is extremely important. So with that, I'll step back and allow us to have questions. So thank you for coming this morning.
We are scheduled to end at about 9 o'clock this morning, which does, fortunately, leave us some time for questions. And I'm going to open it up to you all now. Do you have any questions for the panelists at all? Yes.
Hello.
All right. Very good. At this point, the way that we're organized is we work specifically for those businesses, and the reason for that is that those businesses actually fund us to about 85% of what our overall budget is. So, yes. So the direct answer is yes. We can only work for the businesses that you see listed there. Yes. And that's a good question. And what we do is the majority of our classes that take place on site, we market them to our employees first and their families, but without fail, we always have openings, and then we open up those to the greater community at large. Usually what we do is we'll blast out postings to a lot of the different nonprofits or community organizations in the areas, and then they'll refer folks that they have in there. But that Catching on to Computers class is actually a perfect example. We have 8 slots for that, and we run it every single month. And we actually run it in the morning and the afternoon to try to accommodate both shifts of employees. So 16 spots every month are open. We usually have about 4 employees that take up those spots, and then 4 community members. So it's almost always a perfectly blended class. So that's nothing more than just calling there and enrolling in the next class. Yep. Yes, definitely. And actually, and right now, this is becoming more and more realistic with more and more of our employers. We generally have an arrangement with all of our employers that if they are going through a layoff, particularly if it's something that's going to be time limited, we'll just continue to work with those employees and with those families. If it's something that's going to be impermanent, then we'll work with them to the extent that we can. It usually ends up being about 2 or 3 months that we're able to continue to work with them, and then also our caseworkers will go on and help them navigate through some of the public systems that are in place, so that at least when they're exiting that job, most things are in line.
I actually had a question for Rachel. If I didn't grow up in the state of Michigan, but I just moved in last week. I think there are still people moving to Michigan, aren't there? Could I, as an individual, say, hey, I want that gold certificate, and if I can, how would I go about getting that?
Well, there's 2 ways you can do that. The community college here, Muskegon Community College, Montclair Community College, all our surrounding community colleges here in West Michigan are licensed testing sites. You could go on campus and earn your certificate there through just a general service through their testing center. As well as through our Michigan Works service centers. Now, when you're working with Michigan Works, there are some rules about who can receive what services, and each center is a little bit different. So you have to inquire, and in most cases, you can earn it right at the Michigan Works Service Center. So yes. And if you came from a state where you had earned one in the other state, it is recognizable here, of course. WorkKey scores are not different in South Carolina than they are here. It's the same tool. The piece of paper looks a little bit different because, of course, ours has the Michigan seal. This I know. It's really cool, actually. So yes, you could earn one. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Well, I want to thank our panelists, Susan, Kristen, Rachel, Andrew, for sharing with us this morning. I know I learned a great deal this morning, and hope that you all in the audience also learned some new information this morning. Thank you all so very much for giving us your time this morning, and thank you all for attending.